Katie Snyder from Museum of the Grand Prairie in the Champaign County Forest Preserve District. I'm here out in our hallway because right by our education center, because I want to show you this little bit of an exhibit we have out here. It's about baseball, and this photograph is of the Champaign Colts, which was an African-American team, and they played in the 1940s in Champaign. And the reason I'm talking about baseball in the middle of the winter is it's Black History Month, and I wanted to read you a little story called Champions on the Bench, the Cannon Street YWCA All-Stars by Carole Boston Weatherford, illustrations by Leonard Jenkins. And I wanted to read this for Black History Month because this is a story of everyday people like you and me. History isn't made by just the big names that you know, like Martin Luther King or Rosa Parks. History is also made by people like you and me and kids. Kids that play sports, kids that make art, kids that do theater, kids that just hang out. Okay, so everybody is a history maker. So I wanted to read to you Champions on the Bench. So let's give it a listen. Summer was finally here and all my baseball dreams seemed possible. Willie Mays was leading the major league in home runs. Hank Aaron made the All-Star team. Roy Campanella was on his way to becoming the National League's most valuable player. And I had just joined the Cannon Street YMCA Little League, the only colored Little League in all of South Carolina. And back then, they said colored when they meant Black or African American. Daddy signed me up for the police athletic team the very first day. We sure looked like winners in our brand new uniforms. As soon as we got them, we posed for team pictures. Say, play ball, the photographer said. And did you hear him say that this was the only team in all of the state of South Carolina for Black players? We learned to pitch, hit, and catch. I practiced stealing bases. Slide, Cleveland, coach shouted. When I got home, Mama would say, those pants look like you play on your knees. And as soon as he came home from work, Daddy helped me with my swing. He was practicing his slide. I never quite mastered the slide myself. I tried, but I wasn't good at it. Coach Gibson tried every player on the bases and in the outfield. Then he assigned our positions. Congratulations, Cleveland, you're our pitcher, he said, patting my back. I won't let you down, I told Coach. Our first game at Harmon Field was against the Pan-Hellenic team. I was kind of nervous, but I pitched like I had been doing it forever. I only gave up 5 hits. Plus, I hit a double that drove in a run. We won 4-0. There he is, pitching. Looks like he knows what he's doing, even though he's just starting. Week after week on the dusty field in sweltering heat, we played to win. Some of the boys on the Pan-Hellenic, fielding home for funerals, and Harleston funeral teams I knew from school, church, or the neighborhood. We all wanted the same thing, to become all-stars. So if you've played Little League, you know that in the suited leagues, they're sponsored by different businesses, and some of the businesses are funeral homes sometimes. So that's why those were the names of those teams. At the end of the season, Coach picked the All-Stars. Only All-Stars got to play in the state tournament. And if we won there, we go to the World Series playoffs. My name was the last one to be called. That night I slept with my baseball cap on and I dreamed that the Cannon Street All-Stars had won the state tournament. My teammates were lifting me up on their shoulders as my whole family waved from the stands. The dream seemed so real, and I woke up sure we would make it to the World Series. So he made it on his All-Star team, and he had such a wonderful dream about it, didn't he? But when it came time for the tournament, Coach Gibson broke the news. Boys, I'm afraid the white teams have refused to play us. They've even decided, all 61 of them, to drop out and hold their own whites-only tournament. Coach explained that because we couldn't play in the state tournament, our All-Star team couldn't enter the Little League playoffs. It's not right, guys. That's just the way things are. Now we'll never know how far we could have gone, said Larry, kicking the dirt. I bet we could have beat them all, said Gerald. So this was in the year 1955, and this is a true story. They made it to their state All-Stars, but they're the only black team, and the 61 white teams refused to play them. We knew we were as good as any team. Sometimes we played with the boys from the white leagues in sandlot games. That means just like kind of pickup games at a playground. Leon, the best batter in our league, had racked up a string of homers, and Gerald stole bases faster than a blink of an eye. Y'all are good, said Tommy, a pitcher from a white team. Too bad the tournament is off. Yeah, said Leon, we would have whipped your team. Maybe, said Tommy, but I wouldn't be so sure. I don't know, man. I don't think you can say that if you don't give him a chance, right? Can't say I wouldn't be so sure. I was surprised when the National Little League invited us to its World Series. They said we would be guests. A yellow school bus took us all the way from Charleston to Williamsport, Pennsylvania. I had never been so far from home. So they get to go on a big trip, but they should have been going as All-Stars, and instead, they're going as guests. In Pennsylvania, I met boys from all over the country. We bunked in a college dormitory, ate side by side, and traded baseball cards right and left. I'll trade you a Mickey Mantle for a Hank Aaron, said a boy from Ohio. No way, I told him. So that would have been unusual for a black child from the South to be eating in a restaurant with a white person in 1955. So that was probably an unusual experience for him, because those restaurants were segregated in the 50s in the South. While all the other teams played, we had to watch from the stands. Some of the players were almost as good as the pros. I can't believe we came this far just to sit, we grumbled. Me neither, huffed James. It ain't fair, said Russell, shaking his head. I don't blame him for being mad. I'd be mad too. How about you? While we sat in the stands, fans all around us rooted for their favorite teams. I wish we had a cheering section. Then suddenly I heard a different chant. Let them play, let them play. The crowd in the stands and some of the players were on our side. Let them play, let them play. We even signed autographs for our fans. But the Little League's ruling was final. We left Williamsport without ever setting foot on the field. For a minute there, I thought they were going to get to play. They didn't. There'll be other seasons, said Coach, as we boarded the bus for the ride south. I pulled my cap down over my eyes to hide how cheated I felt. Coach sat beside me. You all right, Cleveland? I'm never going to play baseball again, I swore. Then the teams who wouldn't play with you will have won, said Coach. You have to keep playing, so you'll be ready when you finally face the white teams. They can't avoid you forever. I'll show them, I said. I bet you will, said Coach. Back home, wherever I went, grown-ups stopped me and said, y'all really made us proud. Summer was winding down and our Little League season was over. But even without coaches or crowds or uniforms, we played ball every day after school. Can't blame them for being mad. Who wouldn't be, right? At the end of September, though, we dropped our bats and gathered around the TV set. The Brooklyn Dodgers and the New York Yankees were battling out in the World Series. Daddy and I didn't miss one play. He'd been a Dodger fan ever since they signed Jackie Robinson. I saw black players on other teams now, but Daddy always reminded me that Jackie was the first. Jackie was his hero. Daddy is mine. Daddy and I leapt to our feet when Jackie Robinson stole home in the 8th inning of Game 1. I've never seen him play like that, I yelled. Jackie Robinson was the first player to be allowed to play in the leagues with the white players, and it's kind of hard because there were a whole lot of players, black players that have been playing in the Negro leagues who were every bit as good as Jackie Robinson and every bit as good and or better than many of the white players, but they didn't get a chance to play against those white players. They played in the Negro leagues. All through the series, Daddy prodded the players as if they could hear him through the TV set. Gotta do better than that, he fussed when Don Newcomb gave up 2 runs to the Yankees. And even though we were rooting for the Dodgers, I clapped when Elston Howard, the first black Yankee, homered. Not bad for a rookie, said Daddy. Daddy fretted when Jackie got hurt and the series was tied 3-3. We could see Jackie was still rallying his teammates from the sidelines during the final game. With a score of 2-0, Jackie Robinson and the Brooklyn Dodgers won their very first World Series championship. And somehow, I felt like we all had won. So his team didn't get to play in the All-Stars. But that same year, Jackie Robinson, who was the first black player to play in the National, I think it was the National League, might have been the American because I don't know that part, but it was the leagues that were previously only allowing white players and not black players. His team won. So I think that made him feel a little better, but I'm sure he still didn't feel so great, because who would, right? Now I wanted to show you some real photographs. So these are the kids from the Cannon Street All-Stars when they were sitting in the stands in 1955 when they made it to the All-Stars but weren't allowed to play because the 61 white teams wouldn't let them. And then in 2002, they returned to Williamsport. They lined up on the field during opening ceremonies for the Little League Baseball World Series. And here's what they said. There is no way to right the wrongs perpetrated on the boys of Cannon Street YMCA Little League because of their skin color. And Little League is honored to have Cannon Street team with us today as our special guests. So here they are, all grown up, and they came back as honorary special guests. So it's not the happiest of stories because they made it there and they didn't get to play, but it is a real story of history, and it's a real story of history of everyday people, just like you and just like me. So we'll see you again next time. Bye-bye, friends.